Hello and welcome to Make a Difference Foundation Video 2 July edition. Thank you for joining and I hope everybody's doing well. On our last session 3 weeks ago, what we talk about is why do we need to develop ourselves and how can we do it so it is sustainable and effective. We talk about why it is important to take 5 or 10 minutes out of our day and reflect upon things. So in our first foundation video, if you didn't see that, please take 10 minutes out of your time and watch it as our following sessions are built upon it. Now, as we already understood that for our overall well-being, it is important to develop our 3 faculties: body, mind and emotions. And there are certain types of situations that helps us make those changes or force us to make those changes. Now, this session has 3 key points. The first one I would look at is reward or suffering. Now, this may seem obvious to start with, that if the reward of change is really big, then you are much more likely to engage in the process of change. Or if the suffering that you are in is really painful, then again you are much more likely to be driven to make that change. For example, somebody who says, I want to have a better relationship with my children. I can't help. I do seem to shout a lot at my children. How do I change this? Now, if we look at this situation and assess in detail, my question is, are you really serious about this? Now, if they say, when I do shout at them, I have such a bad repercussions into myself and I really don't like myself for doing so, then it's likely that the suffering he's in is big. And so the person would say, I really want to avoid that and have a better relationship. Unfortunately, for most people, when they say my goal is this or outcome objective is this, the big reward or the big suffering is not there. Sometimes there might be a modest reward and modest suffering, but it is something they still want to change. You need a little bit more boost for that. So now, how can we boost the idea of reward and boost idea of suffering? So maybe in this case, I will talk to that person and say, hey, let's look at down the line and see what do you think might happen in future. If children start to believe that it is acceptable shouting, then when they get older, they might start shouting at their children because they have learned this a role model from me. Now, what we have done here is boosted the idea of suffering, thinking through consequences. Now, let's look at the idea of boosting reward. It could be where the person says, if I stop shouting, the relationship I have got with them when they get to older age or become adult will be fantastic, because we didn't went through memories of shouting and that reward would be immense. Now, second point is psychological mindedness. This has been my number one strength to get me success in my life. Sometimes I meet 2 people who've been through terrible situations in life, and yet one comes out really smiling and okay, and then the other one is struggling with it. Now there could be lots of reasons for that, but one of the prominent result is that it is not what life throws at people, but it is how they interpret it. In other words, psychological minded people thinks it's up to me to deal with the non-negotiables. Don't blame people. Don't even blame yourself. It's terrible. Just look inside of you and say, I can't change this thing, therefore I must learn to accept and make the best out of them. So the psychological minded people are much more likely to get success in life and succeed in making a change. Whatever outcome objective they want to achieve. It brings resilience, it brings courage, and it brings perseverance. So again, let's take an example of a high performing team. Let's say that you are part of that team and there is a lot of dysfunction in it. As a psychological minded person, you would say, what can I do to change the situation? How could I change my behavior, my beliefs, my thinking? In other words, you are being proactive in saying it's all about me. It's not about situation and it is my interpretation. What can I do? Now, the final point is I would call a commitment. Commitment has 2 aspects to it. I have seen many people struggling with alcohol use, so I will use alcohol as an example. Now, how can we change this? And I divide this into essential, significant, and desirable. So let's take someone who is struggling with alcohol. Okay, so if we look at what they need, and what they need to say is what is essential for me. So I would offer things like, for example, you need to stop buying alcohol, because if it is in your house, I know what you are like and you will succumb to it some way or another. Now, what is significant means? So significant means it may not be critical to do this, but it will certainly help. So for example, in this alcohol case, changing a circle of friends. If you change circle of friends, you are not likely to be in a culture where it is acceptable to drink excessively. Now, what is desirable? Desirable are things that would help in our zest for change. So for example, desirable is going on a journey with someone else. And this is why things like Alcoholic Anonymous are very, very successful in this area. And this is what I'm recommending to you. If you want to go on a journey with someone for developing yourself, join in, because then you understand other people and then they encourage you as well. So when you are looking at what you need to do to make those changes, write significant, essential, and desirable. Once you write all these three down, it's usually helpful to get someone to do this with you. So probably you can get a mentor or maybe a well-grounded person who can understand this and help you out setting up those three parts. Now, the second part of the commitment screen is what is going to stop me in tracks. For example, you got somebody saying, I definitely going down to a commitment of getting my life together and learn how to manage my life, and now I gotta jump hurdles. You need to learn how to say no and ask yourself, am I sacrificing something that will help me for rest of my life? Barrier is the second part. Then look at the pitfalls, which is the third one, the final one. They speaks for themselves. Pitfalls are very, very dangerous, as one of the mistake can put you 5 to 10 years behind. For example, I am gonna look at elite sport and do a commitment screen, and let's do it for Joe Public. And you have now go to the commitment screen and figure it out how you're going to do that. What is essential here is that you need to get fit. You have to push the boundaries. Staying within your comfort zone is unlikely to get you in a fit place, and certainly not in elite sports. Now, significant could be things such as looking very closely to your lifestyle, and the desirable could be jogging with a friend or having a company to do exercise. If you are carrying weight, it's unlikely to get you in a fit place. There are arguments that you can be overweight and still be fit. I'm not sure if that's healthy, but there are arguments. You must make decision for yourself. If you believe that I really got to jump the hurdle of losing some weight in order to get fit, then that goes under the hurdle. Now let's make a plan for barrier. For example, the motivation to get out when weather is not so good. Getting a friend to come along, that would help us getting around through that barrier. I have to get rid of it. I don't have to suffer that because I have a friend going along with me. Finally, desirable could be anything at all. And again, you gotta think of what makes it be sweeter to do, what makes it easier for you to do. What I like you to consider for a development time in just 5 to 10 minutes each day is thinking, what is my outcome objective? And it could be, let's say, a better mental health and better overall well-being in this case. Let's say you have chosen that. What is the reward and what is the suffering? Make sure it's clear in your mind. Don't forget to push that if you need to boost it. Now, look at the psychological mindedness. It's up to you how you manage yourself and things that happen in your life. Maybe get a different perspective or different outlook, or go to your mentor or a friend who is in a good frame of mind. And finally, what is the commitment screen? What is it going to take for you to get in a balanced well-being? You have to define those things. But do your essential, significance, desirable, and finally, what is going to stop you to make that change take place? Is hurdles, barriers, or pitfalls? And that's what I recommend for next couple of weeks. Every day, take up one goal for your well-being, invest 5 or 10 minutes and start pushing things that you have learned here in place. Okay, so thank you so much for joining. If you have any question, please feel free to send me a comment, email, and I will be happy to answer any of this. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.